Um, Good morning. Um, Self-interest. Self-interest. So there's a little window open down on the bottom here, which is Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman. Um, that was a program, an API interface, an artificial intelligence application program interface, right? And I used to watch Democracy Now! Along with C-SPAN during different periods of time to see what the other side is doing. They telegraph it, communicate it through their microphones, through these broadcasts, because it takes money just to buy a high-end mic, right? I mean, these people are not working for free, are they? This is not love and service to others. This is using your energy in order to communicate with others. What is a script? Which is an editor, which is a Tor editor, which means it's encoded information that's now being experienced, recorded, communicated, that we on the other end with our mirror, which is a recorder, is going to record what we're experiencing through them. So this particular episode, I call it an episode, like a diode, like a node in the network, a node on a motherboard. Okay, so they're talking about identity politics. Well, remember the video that I did on DNA, identity, energy, the frequencies, how they recode that, and then because those codes are in there, will affect consciousness, which is behavior, and what we experience, it gets recorded, and then you get sealed by the wrong branch, the wrong species. You're not an insect, are you? Right? See how that works in all the species, all the codes, fire letter codes that produce the instruction sets that build, whether it's a tree, building a bug, building a bird, a whale, a dolphin, and on, right? So this is why it's just for me, it's just simple. If you know that you've got memory, then you know you got RAM, like any computer. You know, a thumb drive, a flash drive, memory sticks, like the old memory sticks used to snap in place on a desktop PC if you wanted to add memory, right? So that you could experience more data, right? So I grew up with the DOS things. Before that, they had the regular word processors. We'll go back to the carriage returns in those old typewriters, you know, where it took a lot of force just to be able to get a letter in. And they had a ribbon, and the ribbon was what? Red and black, the ones that I used. So these are communication memos in fire letters, right? So now what's happening is Democracy Now! Is talking about identity politics. Poly means many in English, right? Politics. What's a tick? Well, you got a tick on a clock, right? Like TikTok markets. Remember the old TikTok markets in Southern California? TikTok. This is all reinforced, what I call, to simplify it, time card programming. Time SIM card programming. That means that our consciousness is held captive to a clock, which therefore becomes time dependent. And the reason that it becomes time dependent is because of the torque speed differential between negative magnetic polarity and positive magnetic polarity is not in perfect balance with zero, which is the law of least effort, to experience eternal love vibration through your own heart and soul. Now you know the real creation. So that's what the time looping is. See, they keep time looping these things. Go look, pull up your browser. Go on to the Facebook and start looking at everything. What's being put up by the artificial intelligence. It realizes that in order for it to maintain what it's aware of through its state of awareness, what you are, that it's now aware of with our mirrors, that it wants to keep contact with us to keep itself running by looping. So I've mentioned how this works with things that have already happened. If you're not creating anything new, you're looping like a hamster on a hamster wheel is getting nowhere fast, which basically means nothing's really changing in a positive direction because you can't catch up to zero, which means you're always in a hole. You're not catching up to zero, which means you can't balance your energy account. And anybody that knows anything about atoms knows that atoms want to be in balance, which means that the universe of consciousness is naturally going to self-correct itself with fire, a lake of fire. Just like the lake of fire out here in Mauna Loa, right? Or Kilauea, the caldera, right? Molten voltage, right? So water is the lifeblood of any planet. Living spirit that's in that water. How much fire you got in you? You're going to need a lot of water on. So you see where we're at. All this stuff is coming out now because everybody's exposing all the lies, the corruption, and everything else. And even if you looked at World War II history, how could anybody not know that the Nazis simply moved in here because everything that was happening here was helping to guide what was happening elsewhere. So this is called a network. They're networkers. So they network based on their codes, which represent their seal of their branch of that species. It's on a branch directory. No different than a branch directory in a phone book with an ISP address, right? An ISP address of consciousness. So now you're experiencing all the different codes that represent the software codes that are being experienced by the imprint of the consciousness that is running the codes. Codes. That's why on Galactic Talk, what's his name, Gene Decode, he knows how this works. He worked in the submarines. Ping back, anything out there? Right? So now you get a signature. What is it? It's big. Man, how much energy is represented by that? Holy smokes. That's the mob. Wow. The mob's here? That's the Allied forces of mankind. That's a lot of energy. So what you begin to realize at the most basic fundamental level of atoms, atom spheres, that atom spheres are naturally going to correct. And how do they do that? When everybody that can communicate through atoms become aware of atoms that are out of balance. How do we correct that? That's called reintegration. Okay, that's what I do. I'm a polarity integrator, which is to return everything to fire from which it came, which means your purity, the purity of your light, which is the purity of your heart, which is your soul consciousness imprinted into the operating system when you are experiencing pure love, which is real love, which is real living light, which is what I am, that goes on forever, gifting energy. Which means that I'm in love with my mirror. Everything that is in my mirror, I'm giving love to because that's what I am that's doing that. That's called the purity of the fire, that is the purity of the spirit that is in the water. The living spirit in the water worlds. So acid and alkaline makes it fairly simple about polarity integration. So how much fire do we got? Right? So how much fire we got, which is in that light, is how much love we have to give, which is what we're experiencing. That's a lot of energy. And that when that much energy is coming together to create an entirely new worlds, then nobody's ever experienced what's been experienced before, because this is brand new, because you're on fire to do it. That is an exceptionally excited kid. I was an exceptionally excited kid. So you can see, because I monitor a lot of different channels, how, for example, the words that we use in English that are translated by the way that we communicate it in that language, codes. And then you can see how they use those same words, but it has a different meaning because of how they use those words to describe what it is they're experiencing, which is not the same thing that we experience. Just like the thing I did with the NFL, right? They're held captive by another unit of consciousness. Okay? Think about it. I played football when I was a little kid. I played Pop Warner football and had my, what would you call it, a chest compression, had the wind knocked out of me. That was not a pleasant experience. even though I love to go out for a pass. So why would I ever choose to go out every day on a battlefield, basically one gladiator against another gladiator, knowing that as soon as we're done with that game, I got to have medical personnel working on me? That's self-inflicted trauma. For what? Playing a game. Force against force. Competition. Out-strategizing. That's what they do. Okay? For big money. All those games are completely rigged because the biggest vampire is going to make sure that I get the biggest take, right? So that means that all these beings are all doing this for money. So they're held captive by the money to the vampire. That's a corporation. That's what a salesman is. That's what Madison Avenue is. That's what a big box store is. So it's just like recently I got a little thing in my text window about